The mature adult woman is like, he has every right to wear a hat in the airport. He has every right to speak the way he does when we're in social settings. He has every right to sit down on Sundays and watch golf and football instead of doing spiritual practice. He has the right. And the more I honor that right and even like celebrate that right, that is me celebrating his sovereignty. That is me celebrating his kingship. And this is something that women don't get. But if he is constantly catering to your preferences, he is not in his king. So the more that we can celebrate and honor his choices, this is part of becoming a mature woman. This is part of queening.
Yo, lovers. Welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We're the O'Neills. You're here with Meg and Jacob.
And this is the place we have really uncensored conversations about sex, intimacy, and relationships. We're super excited you're here. Enjoy this episode. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. I am here with the beautiful Jamie Thompson, and we're going to have a really epic conversation. I'm very excited for this to see where our conversation weaves. Welcome, beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Meg. It's my pleasure.
So I was just telling you, I found you not even that long ago on John Wineland's podcast, and yeah, I just really felt you through that conversation. And again, I was just sharing this with you, but I feel I've heard many people talk about what you were talking about, but the transmission you brought and the depth, and I could just feel your embodiment was so palpable, even through just listening. And I think that's what I look out for in the space. And I think that's just so important when, we're in the space teaching or receiving a teacher. So, I just want to thank you for that. And I'm so excited to feel more of that today and to really weave in conversation with you around relationships and sexuality and all the things.
Thank you. I appreciate the reflection. And it is one of my deepest devotion and service is to bring a sense of maturity and depth to the conversation of sensuality and erotic energy and dating and relationship. Like, how can we bring back the sexy in being a mature adult woman?
Yes. Okay, I already want to go a million places even with that comment. But if you just want to take a moment to introduce yourself to everyone and tell us about your work.
Yes, absolutely. So I am Jamie Elizabeth Thompson, and I have founded a company and a community and a curriculum called Awakened Woman, which is a set of practices and tools for feminine awakening. And this is awakening from everything to the highest, most ecstatic spiritual access that we have to our deepest, most primal, erotic embodiment. And how do we really create a full spectrum aliveness inside of our human existence? And so that is the path that I have devoted my life to and that I walk with women and couples on.
I love that. Okay, let's dive in. You did a reel the other day, and I want to start here. You spoke about the myth of the ready-made king. And oh my gosh, I see this in the women I work with. I see this online, this what word am I looking for? There's almost like an entitlement sometimes that women can carry and have around, this is what I want. Where is my king? That's what I'm looking for. And obviously I'm all for women having high standards and knowing what they want and really being available for that and knowing what they're not available for. But I would love you to speak into what you mean by this, the myth of the ready-made king, and how you may be seeing this as a dangerous or harmful thing for a woman to hold when she's dating or when she's, opening to love.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. This is something I love about you is you're spicy. You're provocative. Like you want to go right into the meat and the truth of it, which I love that so much. So like just backing out into a little bit of context about this. So I am truly here in service of divine union. Like I believe that the healing of this planet and the evolution of our consciousness comes through couples who surrender themselves to something greater than them and allow their relationship to be the playground for their own awakening and embodiment. And so all of my work comes from the context that relationship is a spiritual path. So dating is a spiritual path. So a lot of what you named, the word entitlement, which is one of 3 words that I would use to describe the biggest problem I see in our modern dating and even relationship world. And what I see is there are some shadows, one being entitlement, as you mentioned, of this idea that we should just have the fantasy, the image that we've created in our mind of what the absolute perfect man is. And I call it ready-made king because it's kind of like a ready-made pizza where it's like Domino's. It just delivers to your doorway and you're just sitting there on Netflix and, you haven't actually done any of your own excavation or inner embodiment work, but you believe that you should have this thing that is actually not a match for where you are. Like you haven't actually become the woman that is a vibrational match to receive that kind of king. And so that would be the entitlement. And the second aspect that I see in this is something that I actually did a lot. Actually, I did a lot of all 3 of these, so I can just fully own that. But this one is what I call affectation. So affectation is putting on artificial behaviors as a mask, as a way to project something that, again, is not your congruent embodiment of who you are on the inside, right? We live in the world of Instagram filters and, makeup and plastic surgery and courses that are like how to get a man in 10 days. And it's like, what are you actually doing if you are trying to get a man in 10 days? Like, are you contorting yourself into pretzel-like shapes that are actually not who you are? And if that's the case, because relationship and dating is a spiritual path, later on life, the divine is going to illuminate where that incongruence was. So there, and that is something that I want to just double click on, because in my industry of teaching and guiding women into a deeper aspect of their own sensuality, their turn on, their embodiment, a lot of times women come in expecting a quick fix, expecting that they will just have something that will just change the way that they seem, as if they could just put new packaging, like better branding, better marketing on their on top of their self, without actually really shifting and doing the inner work and cultivation to shift the contents inside of the packaging. So it ends up being like an artificial peach flavoring versus like a luscious, juicy peach. And so that's the affectation. Okay, so there's entitlement, affectation, and then the third is manipulation. And manipulation would be like trying to get a man to like you, which sounds like this is what we're always trying to do. But if we are not simply being in our essence and inviting him to see us as we are, but instead we are trying to put on a show, be something, be more sexy, be more soft and devotional than we really are, be more like powerhouse, badass than we really are. And we're doing that as a manipulation. This one is so sticky because the inside of our beingness, we will never actually trust that man that we knew we could manipulate to like a version of us that we knew was not real. So
that
we're
is
always creating this subtle, we're seducing ourselves into and seducing him into something that isn't real. So we can't trust it. We won't be able to trust it. So these are three kind of modern day challenges that I see with women in dating. And this idea of the ready-made king, the other aspect of this, and I know you're in a long-term devotional relationship, and I see this in your posts as well, where it's like relationship is a dojo. Relationship is hard. Like there are challenges, like you are going to get worked. And a lot of times I think that women want this idea of this perfect divine king because they think that they will get to collapse and not actually have to do the work that they will have to do regardless of where the man that they attract is.
Oh, 1000%, 1000%. And what came up for me then when you were saying that is like, we want the ready-made king so we don't have to feel certain feelings when we're in partnership, right? We want him to come perfect so we don't have to feel the parts of us that want to control, or the jealousy or the contraction, or the parts of us that don't feel good enough, or whatever it is, right? But that's inescapable if we want to be, committed to divine union and devotional partnership. It's like we can never bypass any of what's alive in us, no matter how perfect that person that comes into our life is.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because really what all of this does is it creates an armoring and a closure inside of our like primal feeling feminine body. And then energy is not actually moving, and a man actually can't feel us. If we're in manipulation, affectation, or entitlement, we are not feelable, which means the love that we are seeking can't actually feel us to find us. He must feel us to find us. And that's how we create this like opening, like the cosmic yoni just like is open and available. But if we're like, just like everything's stuck in strategy and not really in the feeling body that you're speaking of, then we aren't actually signaling full availability. So that will attract a very different kind of man, because a man who truly wants devotional union and a good benevolent man who might be in king-like qualities wants a woman who is fully available for him and is ready for him. He doesn't want to come like, go through the moat with the alligators and the booby trap and the electric fence in order to like try to get into your heart. Like he's actually looking for a woman who is signaling availability.
Yeah, what comes to me then is like, and I'm sure a lot of women in your work ache to feel this feeling of like being claimed. Yes. But our body has to be in a certain posture to be claimed, right? Our heart has to be available to be claimed. We can say with our mind, I want to be claimed, but it's a totally different thing to embody that and be a space, be like an embodied space for that.
Yes. And it means that we're going to need to surrender our ego. That's the thing, is like, it's like when the sperm hits the egg and the egg like explodes into, it like obliterates the egg, right? The same thing happens when a man claims us, right? We are obliterated. Like the ego, the identity, the self that we were is now saying yes to a union, and saying yes to union is always saying, I'm willing to lay my ego on the altar.
Mm-hmm. I love the word obliterate. And I think so many women want that or think they want that. And then when they're in the moment of that, that's challenging as fuck, because we have internalized so much. We have so much armor. I don't think there's any woman that's immune to, the world we live in, all of these things, to not have, placed armor around her heart and in her body. And I think this is where, like, I love that you said relationships can be hard. And I agree that this, if you want to be obliterated in love, if you want to be fully claimed, it's also saying yes to the part of you that just wants to like hold the fuck on, and the part of you that feels hard, the part of you that is struggling to like let go of control in those moments, the part of you that wants to manipulate him. Like, that's actually the journey too. I'm sure you'd agree with that, like to obliteration and deep opening, like meeting those pieces.
Yes, yes. And in the obliteration is what I have felt and seen in women on this path, our deepest design. Like, there's an aspect of the design of the feminine that is meant to be obliterated into God, is meant to receive so fully that she is in a state of devotion, surrender, and ecstasy. And so it is worth it. That's the other thing. It's like divine union, should you choose to accept the invitation, is absolutely worth every bit of thrashing. And that's what it felt like for me in my relationship. We've been together for 3.5 years, and we're engaged, and we have this amazing partnership, and we have chosen into relationship as a spiritual path. And one of the places in myself that I got to meet in that is my own armor, and the way that I had preferences and ideas of how I wanted it to go, and how I wanted him to behave, and how I wanted to feel, and the level of comfort I wanted to have. And I've been doing this work for a long time, right? So I got to receive and drink in all of my own medicine to really be in the practice. And all of this is truly a practice. Like, none of the women that you see talking about their relationships on Instagram have arrived. It's like we are all in this daily, moment by moment journey of opening and embodiment and awakening and surrendering the armor. And I remember there was, I just from remembering this moment of my beloved looking at me in the eyes when we were making love, and he's like, I need you to receive all of me. And I was like, I am. And he's like, I need you to receive all of me. And I was just like, and it started, like, the energy started actually opening into places that I didn't even know that I was closed. And this is one of the ways that, should you allow a king into your life in divine union, he is not going to settle for 99% of you. He's going to constantly invite the stretching of you into more of yourself. And so it's been such an initiation to be and allow myself to just let go of all of the egoic ideas of how far along I thought I was. And just allow the moment by moment. Well, in this moment, I can receive more. And let me say yes to that, instead of, critiquing or resisting in some way. And so this is truly a journey of perpetual becoming more of who I am. And that is why I continually share and bring deeper aspects of my own practice through, because I feel like that in some of these personal examples and moments is where we can really receive the deeper transmission.
Yes. You have just such a delicious way of teaching and describing things too. It's like, yeah, it's really felt. I love it. A few places I want to go. Let's go to the place around you said you had preferences and around the way you wanted him to behave. And I feel like that's such a place that many women, experience, right? Whether they're, early dating stage or me, I'm in a 10-year-long relationship, there's still preferences. There's still things I look at my relationship and I'm like, oh, if I still had, and sometimes those manipulative qualities are still there, but I track them so much now and I'm aware of them. I don't let them, drive the car of my relationship, but there's still parts of me that it's like, oh, I wish you would have said, be like this in this moment or wear this or, X, Y, and Z. So I'd love you to speak into, for a woman that feels like that tendency to want to manipulate her man, change him, those preferences for how he should behave, drives her in relationship. What would your invitation be to her?
Okay. So first, a couple of little definitions to really kind of create this playing field. So a preference is something that we are a way that we are trying to control him so that we can be more comfortable. Okay. Now, a true desire or the invitation for him to rise can be confused with a preference, right? So this deepest invitation for him to rise is like our womb deep truth that sees his greatness and is here in service of his awakening. Devotional service from our heart. Has nothing to do with our comfort or how we think things should be. It's truly our full feminine system in service and devotion to the masculine, which is, I believe, one of the highest artistry that a woman can be in. So I want to share that because I believe that this confusion causes so much unnecessary suffering in relationships. And that there is an artistry to becoming the invitation. And I love the word invitation because an invitation has no attachment, but an invitation is fully open in creating an opportunity. And some women inspire what they most deeply desire and inspire their invitation in their partner, and others repel it. And if it's coming from the place of preference, where it's like this thing that it's like our idea of how it should go, or it's this thing we want to make it more comfortable. It's just like, it's causing us to not really just rest in that deep womb-like invitation. It often repels what we want. Like preferences actually repel the masculine, a masculine man, from actually giving you what you want. Like the energy of preference has a repellent because it's like, it's up here and it's just kind of this like little like naggy, demandy, criticize kind of thing. It's not actually our deepest embodied truth. So, for me, I know that the more that I let him feel this deeply embodied truth in my womb, in my cervix, in my heart, in my pussy, the more that he responds. And so there's an example of this. I mean, I have so many examples of like my preference self where it's like, I'm like, when we're in public and we're with our friends, like, you should speak this way and you should like do this thing. And like, why are you wearing the hat when we're in the airport? Like, why do you wear the hats? Like, I don't like the hats. Like that's not what we did. It's a reel. There's like, most of us probably have a preference reel that literally just runs about things that our partner should do differently. And it's just there. Right. And at some point I have started thinking that it's cute. It's cute because it's a younger part of me that just wants to feel like comfortable and easy and have everything just kind of be the way that makes inner child feel the most comfortable. But that's not the mature adult woman, right? The mature adult woman is like, he has every right to wear a hat in the airport. He has every right to speak the way he does when we're in social settings. He has every right to sit down on Sundays and watch golf and football instead of doing spiritual practice. He has the right. And the more I honor that right and even like celebrate that right, that is me celebrating his sovereignty. That is me celebrating his kingship. And this is something that women don't get. But if he is constantly catering to your preferences, he is not in his king.
Mm-hmm.
So the more that we can celebrate and honor his choices, this is part of becoming a mature woman. This is part of queening, right? Is like actually being in celebration of his choices.
Yes.
And I have more, but I'm curious if you looked at
Oh my gosh. Well, I have so much to say on this. I agree 1000%. Something that I've realized within myself, and, I teach this now, is that in those moments of feeling the need to share our preference, for me, it was, I need you, an example, to not wear the hat in the airport so I don't have to feel this. So I don't have to feel this discomfort, awkwardness. For me, a lot of the time when I wanted Jacob to dress a certain way, it would be, so I don't have to feel, I want you to look like that. So I feel like we match and we look good and people perceive us in a certain way. But if you don't wear that, if you're going to wear what you want, then I have to be with the discomfort of, how are people perceiving us? How are people perceiving me? How are people perceiving him? So really, I feel like the maturity of this also is, can I be a woman that's just willing to feel what's there instead of trying to control or manipulate my man so I don't have to feel? Can I let him be a free being and feel what there is to feel? And, the reflection I've had from my husband since, being devoted to this work is he feels like there's so much more space in the relationship for him to be him. And because of that, I feel so much more of his power and I trust him so much more deeply. And you touched on this before, but a man that just bows down to our preferences and contorts himself to our preferences, we don't actually then fucking trust him. Then we kind of get the ick and a bit repulsed by that. And I think this is the piece that we really need to acknowledge as women who want, majority of women that come into my world want to feel claimed, want a man that they can deeply trust, want a man that they feel his fucking power. That also means we're going to be uncomfortable sometimes. That also means he's going to do things that aren't always, our preference. And part of that is honoring that and accepting that and allowing that to be, part of the process.
Yes. This is bringing another aspect of this online, which is the other side of preference, which is the deeper oracular navigation system that the feminine has. And so I believe that, I love how you said that a lot of women coming in want to be claimed, like that. Me too. Everyone wants to experience the loving ravishment and claiming of a man. And a question that can be kind of uncomfortable is, what do you have to offer him? And I love this question because it has us look at whether we value the feminine inside or not. Some women, the thing of what do you have to offer? The first layer, if you're conditioned in our culture, is oh, well, I'm smart and I have a good job and I look nice and I, take care of myself. Right. But deeper than that, right? What are your feminine gifts that you've embodied? What is your feminine artistry that you have embodied that you have as an offering to him. And one of the aspects of this, which kind of is adjacent to this conversation, is our oracular navigation system. Mm-hmm. So if the masculine is the driver, the feminine is the navigator. There's a navigation system that women naturally have, because when our oracular gifts are turned on, we can see in the dark. Mm-hmm. And it's an incredible value to embody this, both for ourselves and for the masculine. So one of the most incredible gifts that I believe that we have to offer is our deeply embodied invitation for him to rise into his greatness. Mm-hmm. And our inner knowing and spiritual gifts and oracular wisdom that knows what that is. Like, we can sense and feel, if we're in our bodies, if we can sense and feel what that is, that will have him step more greatly into his power, into his wisdom, into his leadership. Like, we can feel what that is. And that is such a gift to him. And I have chills, because this is divine union. Like, this is part of just as he is obliterating us into our essence from our ego with his leadership, we are also the invitation for him to rise. And I have an example of this that also has a death of my preferences inside of it, because it came hand in hand with this one. So, a couple years ago, when there was a big crypto market crash, my beloved was invested in crypto, and he was all excited about crypto, and he was doing all of this in it. And my sensing, like my guidance, was like, something is off. I don't know how to explain this. Like, I don't know enough logically to even have this argument. And I know in my body that something is off. And I brought it to him, and he gave me many logical arguments of why I was wrong. And I was like, I just have to tell you. And then again, a little later, I brought it again. And I brought it 3 times. And every time I was met with this sort of defensive, logical argument. And even in his logical arguments, I could feel that it wasn't fully coming from his deepest truth and knowing. Like, I could feel something didn't quite taste right in it. But this was a moment where I had to make a choice of my preference. My preference was for him to listen. And like, I knew I was right. Mm-hmm. And his truth was, he wasn't ready to listen to that. And so I had a conversation where I said, it feels better in my body to trust you and to trust life to let this play out than it does to keep bringing this to you. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to bring this anymore. I'm actually just going to allow this to play out the way it needs to play out. And I love you, and trusting feels the best in my body. So that's how I'm going to let this happen. And a few months later, he lost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And it played out. Like, it ended up, the thing I was sensing in the overinflation, like because I just track energetics. This is what I do in my work with women. This is what I do in life. Like, I am just constantly seeing things as energetic patterns. And that's just part of how I see the world. And so I was just reading the energy of crypto at that time. And so he came to me after this happened. And I mean, I was devastated for him. Like, I was like, oh, this is, because he was so devastated in this. And he was like, I need to learn to listen to your wisdom. And he's like, I've never been with someone before that saw things the way you see them. And so I have to get used to it. And I realize that there is wisdom inside of you that I need. And he's like, thank you for your grace with this. And I appreciate you letting me learn in my own way. And that's what I said, is like, you had to learn this in your own way. I'm not even mad at you. Like, I'm so glad that you see and that you're going to start trusting so that we can fully rise together. Because the thing I was bringing was in service of him and in devotion to his awakening. And then I got to really have this huge lesson in preferences of how that was going to play out. And I got, I got to be very uncomfortable in that. And then, we got to lose money, which is uncomfortable, but it's just money. And the lesson and the feeling of trusting him and letting him learn on his own. And then the feeling of him realizing on his own that there's an oracle inside of me, and that there's a difference when it's Jamie and her preferences speaking and when like the oracle is talking. And so we have a distinction now where there's this moment where sometimes he's like, is this the oracle? And I'm like, actually, no, it's not, or yes, like, this is like, I'm really bringing you something. And so I feel that may illustrate for some of your listeners, the distinction and the difference between being the invitation for him to rise into his greatness and our preferences, and how we get to navigate both in this spiritual path of relationship.
That is such a stunning story. And I love the piece around you were bringing that part of you, the gift of your oracular nature, without or being then also able to acknowledge, I also have a preference that you listen, but that's a preference. I want you to listen. I want you to, act on that wisdom. And I think that's a piece so many women really need to hear, right? That this is I see this is like a whole new paradigm of relating and, being in relationship is, there's not that if we're to relate in this way, we really have to let go of the paradigm of like, there's a winner and a loser and someone's right and someone's wrong. Like that has to be obliterated. That has to just leave the space, because if you're still trying to, offer your wisdom in that way and then trying to be right or needing him to acknowledge you're right, all of these different things, that just gets so messy. And yeah, it's not going to liberate the love that's really wanting to be liberated. Yeah, I love that story so much. And there was another piece I wanted to bring there. What did I want to bring? The preference piece. I don't know. It's gone now.
I have a couple pieces from it that I could pick out that might be one of them. One is the, so there's courage associated with this. Like to be a queen to a king, to be a mature woman in divine union requires a level of courage to disrupt, like the courage to disrupt when something doesn't feel right, and to disrupt from our devotion, to disrupt from our heart, to disrupt from our devotion to divine union and to him rising and to our highest evolution together. And there's something in that I want to just call forth and ignite inside of women today, because I think that inside of a lot of polarity conversations about relationship, the woman is made to be in this kind of passive, submissive, subservient kind of position. And that is not actually the full spectrum feminine, because one of the gifts of the feminine is our discernment. There's an incredible quality of discernment. The egg discerns which sperm she's going to choose. There's thousands of little sperm, and she chooses the one that will be the highest, the best match in the gene pool, right? So that quality of discernment lives inside of the feminine. And when we can have the courage to disrupt with devotion, not from a nagging, demanding, criticizing kind of place, but through sharing how it feels to us, sharing something that we're tracking, asking for consent, asking if he's available to hear something that we're feeling before we launch into it. But the courage, like there's a call to this that I feel, because I think that the polarity conversation of what a woman is supposed to be has gotten a little off the rails. And a lot of women have lost this like oracular nature, this connection to that, and how to bring it in a way that is from their feminine artistry instead of from their wounding.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that piece, because I think there's so many teachings around polarity these days that can be very dogmatic. And I see people that come into my work that have been in other work. I see people just in the industry that like men that are taking those teachings and becoming dictators in their relationship, and women are taking those teachings and just, it's another way of like staying in a cage of, I've got to be this, I've got to keep myself, I've got to collapse, I've got to be this version of myself in order to, you know, whatever, fill in the blank. I saw a reel you did recently around devotion is savage. And I would love you to speak into that, because it's like, for me, I really see the feminine is not just sweet, soft, and surrendered. She is all of it. It's really, for me, the feminine is, can I reveal and be alive in whatever is here for me? Can I offer that into the relationship? Not from a place of projection, not from a place of, I say, throwing grenades. Like, it's like you're just throwing, you know, what you're feeling at your partner, but like, opening and offering what is alive. Sometimes that's savage. Sometimes that's, you know, rage. Sometimes that's ecstatic bliss.
Yes, I love that. I love the devotion is savage. So let's see how that lives for me is that it's like when we are so fully, when we're surrendered to our own devotion, to our own design, to our relationship, to God. Like, we are surrendered to something. If something gets in the way of that, it is our natural instinct to, I don't know, the word that's coming is like, it feels primal. Like, it's our natural instinct to like claw that thing out of the way. Like there's something in it, or to like to open wider than that thing. Like we have this natural instinct for that. And in my relationship, it lives like, my partner has said to me before that no one has ever believed in him the way that I have, or as fully as I have. And that my belief in him, my seeing and knowing of him, causes him to be more of himself. And that has been part of his awakening in our relationship. And part of that is when he's not in his presence. For example, if we're making love and like I don't feel him present, my body doesn't open. And I don't force myself to open if I'm not open. Like, I'll be in my feelings and in that awareness. But if there's something in me that's closing in his presence, like, I'm going to bring that and reflect that in a loving way that is purely taking responsibility simply for how I'm feeling in that moment. But that is truly, that's savage. It's savage devotion to him being in his in his wholeness, in his power, in his presence, in his leadership. And I think that one of the ways that we can be, it's like it just is our truth. Our design in relationship is to be an accurate reflection. Like like we are reflecting his presence and his leadership when we are, one, in touch with our feelings, and two, have the courage, the savagery to actually allow our feelings to be present in real time with what they are. Like, we don't feel like we need to hide the experience of disappointment or sadness or grief or even rage from him. Like, we don't feel like we need to hide that stuff in order to be this like perfect presentation. Like, if we're trying to be a perfect presentation all the time, he is not getting accurate information. He's not getting an accurate reflection of how to properly lead. Like, we are actually participating in him getting off course.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Yes, I love that you just spoke about like offering him great information. I speak about that all the time in my work. And I think sometimes women might, in my work, and I would be interested to hear you too, a lot of the time it's women finding polarity work. It's women kind of like seeing the vision for their relationship. Like I call women like the torch bearers often. We're like, look, I'm holding the torch. This is where I can see, that our relationship is pulling us towards, and they're really being a stand for that. But what I noticed too, this was present in my relationship, where I just come to my partner and say, I want you to be more masculine. But then that's all I would say. It was like, I want you to be more of that. I'm not going to offer you any information with my body as we are in the moment by moment, unfolding of our partnership. But I'm just going to continue to remind you, you're not being masculine enough. I want you to be more masculine. And for anyone out there that does not work, that the portal is becoming, like you so beautifully said, like that invitation, that living invitation. That's the only way that he is ever going to truly understand like how to be the embodiment of what we're really aching for.
Yes, absolutely. And it is through our sensation and our feelings and our embodiment that we are an accurate reflection. Like, it doesn't actually live in our mind. And so on that, I would love to talk a little bit about sensuality and about turn on and about intimacy, and one of the ways that I have found in my work that a woman, like just starting, like let's say it's a woman who is living mostly from the neck up, or even mostly from the heart up, or once was in touch with her body, but since she's had kids or career, or is just feeling like she's in a place where she's like, all of this sounds really great, Jamie and Meg, thank you. And like, where do I actually even start? Like, I don't have a relationship, or I'm in a relationship, but it's feeling a little stale. It's like, where to start? And this is the most potent and challenging for some women starting place that I have found is in our sensuality and erotic energy. And the reason is because when a woman can turn on the life, like our life force that lives in our womb, that is like the waist down life force, like that potent erotic channel that runs through our central channel, this wellspring of erotic aliveness, when that starts to turn on, right? And the what was once a trickle becomes a stream, becomes a river, and there's a waterfall of energy eventually moving inside of her system. A woman starts to actually feel more. A lot of women don't have enough energy in their bodies to know what we're talking about when we're constantly talking about feelings in this conversation. Like, there has to be, it can't be a trickle. Like, there has to actually be energy inside of your body. So I have found that simple practices to really invite women more deeply into feeling the current of Eros that is running in our system all the time, supports with really dropping into that navigation system that we're talking about, dropping into our feeling system. And I have a fun story about how
Please
how
give
I
it to us.
discovered this. I have another fun story. And I love that I'm sharing this. This came from your listening. So I don't always share about my days in, as an exotic entertainer in Las Vegas, but sometimes I do.
Fun.
And it's a really powerful example because this is the place that I learned about erotic energy myself. Like when I started as a dancer, I was coming from conservative upbringing, small town, Christian, repressed, like the idea of pleasure or bliss or any of that was not anything that I grew up with an imprint of. So I was starting from not having that. And so of course I was like, dangling a lollipop in front of a child that's never had sugar. I was like, oh my God, I could go learn this in Las Vegas. And I was like, okay, I'm going to see what this is all about. Like I felt the power of it. I felt the potential and the eros, and I wanted to liberate that in myself. So I started working part-time, traveling back and forth from California to Las Vegas. And I remember looking one night at the club and looking around and seeing all of the women dancing. And I was like, why is no one talking to the couples in the club? Like all of the women would go talk to the single men, and it's a majority single men that come in as customers. But I was like, no one's talking to the couples. And I was like, I'm going to go sit down and have a conversation with these women that are brave enough to come into the club with their partner. And so I would go and I would sit down and have a conversation. And I discovered that many of them were in some level of disconnection from their own erotic energy, or they were in judgment of what was happening. They were uncomfortable. Like my favorite was when a woman was like visibly uncomfortable to be there. And I would go and just sit down and have a drink with her and just like truly bring my energy and watch her eventually realize that I wasn't a threat and that we were on the same team. And then through that, I discovered something really interesting. So I would go and, we would go to the back in the private, champagne rooms, and where there was like a little more like containment in the energy. And I was so excited and enamored with the way that my energy turned on through working at the club. Like I had no idea that I had so much erotic energy in my body. And through seeing the other women there, it's like I connected to an ancient template of this like fully turned on woman. And it was through the transmission of other women there. And I also believe it's encoded in our DNA and in the field, whether we've connected with it in this lifetime or not, that women know what it's like to be fully turned on and lit up. Like we have access to that. So I was so excited about that access that I was like, well, what if I can bring that access into their relationship? And so we'd go to the VIP room in the back, and I would, through my movement, through my embodiment, through my invitation, would invite her into her own erotic energy and invite her into her sensuality. And you would see this visible and visceral shift when a woman's system turns on. And it is the sweetest thing. It is truly, nothing makes me more feel more joy than watching a woman's system turn on. Her system would turn on, and you could tell because her partner would shift out of a kind of daze of like boredom or his attention being on me to his attention on her. And it was like he didn't even know what he was responding to. Before he even knew what he was responding to, he was responding. And it's because her system turned on and he could feel it. And men can feel that. It's like built in for them to be able to feel when a woman is in her sensuality and her aliveness. And so this quality of irresistibility, like I love that word, this quality of irresistibility that she embodied of her own energy is not something that she put on. It's rather something that she felt inside. And then when she felt herself, he could feel her. And it was like this whole energetic dynamic changed. And there was people that were like, you saved our marriage. And it was this whole incredible thing. And so that became my focus when I was working was working with couples in this way. And eventually I was like, well, I'm actually just going to do this outside of the club. And that's when I started working with women. But I combined this very, on the field, on the court kind of practice of watching this happen with women, watching how erotic embodiment can be transmitted, can be felt and received, and then embodied with all the other, training in somatics and embodiment to really realize that this is something that can be taught, not as an affectation or behavioral change, but as an actual shift from the inside of how we feel.
I adore that so much. I loved that you spoke about like this ancient template within you and awakening that. That is definitely what it's felt like for me as I've, connected and awakened my own erotic energy. I never used to be someone that felt I was sexy or could dance. And like, I would look at other women like that and be like, that's just not me. I don't have that. And that was so powerful on my own journey to realize like, oh, this isn't something that if I want to do that, I've got to like learn how to dance or like it's within me. And, I get to, another woman can illuminate that for me. Like her reflection can remind me that that's within me, but really it's this awakening. So I just love that you brought that. And I think this is why being around other women and being open to being in the receivership of their transmission, like maybe this is in, dance spaces or women's groups but like if a woman desires to awaken her own erotic energy, like go in spaces where that pulses through, like very palpably through another woman and let yourself feel that.
Yes. Oh my God. And that's it, is like, feel when you feel it. Like there's a difference between, a woman who's doing sexy as a performative feminine sensuality or sexiness, and a woman who's truly feeling herself in her own divine embodiment. And you can feel it inside of yourself when it's on. Like, it's like there's a feeling that you have, and just know that other people can feel that too in you. Like you can trust it. You don't have to perform it. You can actually trust that when you're feeling it, we're feeling you. And so that's one of my favorite things to share and bring into this world.
Yes. I love that so much. And I think that when a woman activates that part of herself, obviously that shifts the way she makes love and in the bedroom, but it does not stay there at all. And I think sometimes when people think about sexuality and sensuality work, they're just thinking better orgasms. But oh my gosh, that's just like the beginning. That's just the fun stuff.
How about being magnetic in the world, like in your life? How about being a magnet for more things that will bring you bliss and pleasure and aliveness, because that's the frequency that you're putting out. Like this is where we become the magnet for more aliveness and abundance. And yes, relationships, yes, sex, yes, money, but it's also just this felt experience of living life as magic. Like it's like there's this subtle bliss that is always available in every moment that has nothing to do with genital stimulation, right? Yeah. So we can't reduce it to that. It's actually a like walking around in what I believe is our highest form of feminine artistry.
Yes. I will also add, I gave birth 4.5 months ago to my son, and connecting with my erotic energy and having done work on my sexuality, everything to do with how I birthed, right? I'm so much more committed to my work and devoted to my work, because I truly believe how we birth matters and how we birth babies into this world matters. And like, yeah, if we haven't descended into the place that we're going to give birth from, right, how are we going to trust that? And sexuality and sensuality work is just everything in trusting that space, rooting in that space, being able to inhabit that space. And then obviously, then comes being able to trust that in birth and in all aspects of our life.
Yes, I love that you're speaking of pleasure-informed birthing. I've had a couple of clients that have said that as well, where this work rippled out into that. So I love that you had that experience.
Okay, my love, I have adored this conversation. Again, just like you are such a felt experience. Like your energy is so palpable, and just, I love the way you transmit this work in the world. What have you got going on? What would you like to invite our listeners into? Yeah, where can they find you? Where can they play with you?
Yes. So if you are desiring to awaken more of your feminine pleasure body and work with this cultivation of becoming the irresistible invitation to your beloved, or to a man you haven't met yet, or turn your relationship from stale into a more juicy, deep practice and embodiment of erotic bliss, or you want to attract a man into your life, like you're really working with this energy that we've been talking about here today. I call it the honeypot embodiment. And it's that organic feminine pleasure that feels like you are in your own essence. And that is so deeply felt and emanates from you. So I have an online live event called Honeypot, and it's on March 12th. There is replays if you get this after that, but you can come live, and I invite you to come live because it's a super powerful field of transmission of this energy that we are working with here today. And so I invite you to come to that. That is free. And then I also have a 6-week journey coming up called Feminine Essence, which is a journey to fully liberate your sensual aliveness and really turn on your feminine attractor field so that you can both receive the man of your dreams and also have discernment of what you are magnetizing, as well as working with the playground of your relationship to be really about spiritual evolution, deep intimacy, and erotic bliss. So inside of that, I really work with the aspects that you get a taste of in Honeypot. So if you are curious about feminine essence, come check out Honeypot. And if you just want to go deep for 6 weeks, I invite you to join me in Feminine Essence. And also you can follow me on Instagram. I post all kinds of fun, juicy, enlivening, and truth. My partner calls it, I'm the truth laser. He's like, you're like lasering people with truth. Anyway, I post lots of fun content on Instagram also.
Beautiful. And I'll put all those links below, but also just speak out what's your @ on Instagram.
Oh yes. At underscore awakened underscore woman.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Is there any do you want to leave the women listening with like any final piece or a little just like truth bomb, anything?
Something I always want to share is that everything, like the template, already lives inside. Like the template is already available. There's a part of you that has access already to the things that you want to become. And it's really a matter of listening to what is already inside, listening to the field, listening to the goddess, listening to God, and allowing yourself to embody what is already here in full acceptance. That is always the doorway.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this conversation. I'm obsessed with what just went down. It was so beautiful.
Yay.
Thank you, Jamie.